Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the school committee of Wednesday, May 25th. This is the 25th. Call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. The next thing on our agenda is to approve our agenda for this evening. And I know I have a couple of changes. One is to add citizen speak, which we neglected to include. And so that will go in on our agenda as item 4 underneath the superintendent's report. And also under the chair's report, where we're going to be approving the school year calendar, that should refer to 2022-23 school year calendar. That's just a minor correction. But any other changes or subtractions from the agenda? If not, I'd welcome a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. And roll call vote. Dr. Carroll?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
Member White?
Yes.
Member Ross Denny?
Yes.
Member Varghese?
Yes.
And Chair Rose Marin, yes. Okay, so we're all set with that. I'd like to take a moment before we start our meeting tonight. The Milton School Committee would like to take a pause for a moment of silence for everyone impacted by the recent acts of violence in our country, just since our last school committee meeting on May 11th. On May 14th in Buffalo, New York, 10 people were killed and 3 were wounded when an individual entered the Tops Family Market in a largely Black neighborhood and began shooting. On May 15th, just the day after, a shooting took place at a Taiwanese Presbyterian church in Laguna Woods, California. 1 person was killed and several others were injured. And most recently, there was a tragedy that took place yesterday, May 24th in Uvalde, Texas, at Robb Elementary School, where 19 students, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, and 2 adults were killed, and several others were injured in yet another senseless act of violence. As stated by Superintendent Jett in last week's blog, these incredibly common acts of violence only solidify the need for us as a district to continue with our work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to make all who are part of the Milton Public Schools community feel safe, seen, heard, and valued. We are grateful to the entire Milton Public Schools leadership, faculty, and staff for their courage and support of our students during this very difficult moment in our history. In remembrance of all the victims of these tragedies, their loved ones, and their communities that will be forever impacted, please let's observe a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Jett for his report and district updates.
So thank you, Chair Rosemary. And last week, when this agenda was being prepared, I did not think that we would have another situation as we did yesterday. But I felt as though it would be remiss if I did not comment on it. Oftentimes we see the aftermath of something tragic like this and the supports and things like that that go into place to support our students, staff, and in our extended Milton Public School community. But I'm here tonight because I wanted to share some of the proactive things that we are doing in the Milton Public Schools to make sure that we're making connection, forging positive relationships, and keeping tabs on our students. In the fall, at this very same school committee meeting, you had members of the elementary schools in the Milton Public Schools do a presentation on social emotional learning, PBIS, and some of the positive things that they're doing to be proactive, to identify when kids are stressed, identifying their emotional regulation and their ability to access adults and staff in the building to make those connections. I also want to elevate some of the things that we ask in our strategic plan. We talk about our strategic plan that talks about social emotional learning, safe and supportive schools in our equity pillar. We also ask the warrant committee, the select board, for various positions that help us deal with these things, to identify and be proactive to support our students when they were having a tough time. So from trauma-informed training November 2nd with our staff, it's still ongoing, to the hiring and the support of our adjustment counselors. For many people that don't know, our adjustment counselors did curbside visits throughout the last 2 summers to support our students in a proactive approach to keep them connected to school, particularly those who still remain remote last year as it was an option. The MFE just did a celebration a couple of weekends ago, and their funding need was for Calm Classrooms, another initiative proposed by the leadership, particularly at the elementary levels, to work with our students to make sure that we're providing them with the support that they need that allow them to focus on their academics. We are often lobbying for smaller class sizes. Smaller class sizes, students, we have the ability to focus in on individualized attention and really getting to know our students. The Pierce Middle School implemented connection time last year to try to forge better relationships with our students and allow them to have another adult outside of their guidance counselor administrator that they can make a connection to. And then the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need to make sure all of our students, despite their differences, despite their identities, feel welcome and connected and part of the school community. When that is not happening, we try to make the necessary steps to make sure that we contain them. But I would caution the general public, sometimes in opposition, whether it be on social media platforms and in the community, sometimes the rhetoric that we spew can incite hateful acts of violence. And so I call on a community in the wake of the tragedy you just highlighted in 3 different communities and many before that, to come together, even in opposition, even in times of disagreement. We have to have respectful, cordial conversations, and hopefully we all can grow from learning from one another. I often said our diversity in the Milton Public Schools is a microcosm of the world as a whole, and it is our strength. It is our strength. So I want to assure the general public that our partnership with Milton Police is strong. For those that don't know, we have a security council that took a pause during COVID, but it was in place for many years, led by Sergeant Jack Richmond, who recently retired in January, but is staying on as a consultant. We will be working with Mark Simodoro. We have Be Safe, floor plans, everything. And I don't get into all of the security because you don't want to put it out there, but there's so many measures that are in place in concert with Milton Police, Milton Fire Department, in the event that something tragic like this were to happen, in how we mitigate or minimize the casualties that could obviously take place. So that is something that is ongoing, from cameras to swipe cards to Securely, which is an online platform that helps us identify when our kids are searching inappropriate things or concerning things. It alerts all of the administrators within that building so they can reach out to the student and his or her family members to make sure that that student is safe. So on one hand, we see the tragic aftermath and we see the police response. but we don't always look at the proactive steps that we're taking. And I just encourage any family member, if you have a child that's in distress, if we see something on social media that's concerning, share it with an adult. It's always better to be proactive than it is to be reactive. And so I want to thank you for affording me this time to deviate from the agenda to share that. And I would encourage any parent or guardian that has any concern about their child's individual school or building to please reach out to the administration and have your questions answered. When tragedies like this happen, our students and quite frankly, our staff start to question their own vulnerability within our buildings. So some measures frustrate people, the sign in, doors locked. As you can see, those are some of the mitigating factors that we have in place to keep our students and staff safe. So thank you. I just wanted to make that comment. And by me mentioning some of those things, I don't know if any of the school committee members have any questions about some of the other things that we're doing in the Milton Public Schools. I would be happy to take this opportunity in this public platform to share.
No, I just want to add that I'm very grateful for the proactive stance that our faculty have taken in reference to this work long before these tragic incidents. The reality is this behavior is taught or it's found online, but in either event, the schools have assumed the responsibility to try to encourage students to look at the world in a different way that extends love and appreciation and respect and understanding for people of different cultures. And the incident in Buffalo being the first of many for the year, it just made me realize that when we live in a country where a grandmother can't go to the grocery store without fear of losing her life just because of what she looks like, the Milton Public Schools is on the right path in terms of our insistence that this work happens. When a grandmother cannot pass away in her own bed, in the peace and tranquility and with her loved ones, we have created a country where it's just tough to live. So I want to thank you, Superintendent Jett, and the courage that people have to continue this work in spite of the fact that there are people who don't believe it's necessary. And I don't want a single Milton Public School student to believe they're not valued or appreciated or celebrated just because of the color of their skin. And the fact that we've taken it on as a priority to ensure that other people can see that value, even though it may not be taught at home. I give you all kudos and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Rustin. Dr. Carroll?
I echo the thanks Member Rosteni was just expressing, and also just wanted to say to your point about the role of the community and our opportunity to sort of stand up and say what we stand for as a community. I just wanted to say thank you to our neighbors with Courageous Conversations and all the folks that organized the standout that occurred just before this meeting, actually at 6 p.m. Originally scheduled to honor the 2nd anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. They did a beautiful job of providing space, holding space for a lot of people in the community who showed up in the context of these last 3 tragic events that you mentioned. And so I guess I just want to thank everybody who participated in that. It was so powerful and poignant, especially that it kind of segued into Unity Night at Tucker, which is happening right now. The standout was at Parkway Methodist and right across the street from Tucker. And, although I'm sad to be missing the Unity Night right now, it was really like moving to get to practice with my kids, like singing their song, Lean on Me, which is I'll maybe performing right now. And it's just feels good in spite of all of this grief and fear and worry to know that, we are holding these spaces for each other in this community. And that so many of our families and neighbors are there. And I just also do appreciate your leadership on that, setting the tone to support our faculty and staff, who, of course, are then supporting our students. So thank you. And we are all in this together. And those of us who are in positions of leadership, especially, I think have important roles to play around keeping this work front and center, focusing on why belonging matters for all of our students and families. So thanks. It's tough
Thank you,
times.
Dr. Carroll. Dr. Miranda?
Yes, I'd also like to echo what Member Denny and Dr. Carroll just said, and to applaud, I think, your leadership. I think, the stepping up and naming what we're seeing and the pain that it brings. And just for us to sort of rally it as a community, as a district, to make sure that we continue to take care of our children and our families. I think it also emphasizes the importance of social emotional learning, right? And how we need to pay attention to the mental health well-being of our young people. And that there is a lot of stress out there. There are so many stressors, and we know that the pandemic has just exacerbated so much, and that we need to, as the adults in the town, we need to be paying attention. And we owe it to our young people to make sure that they do have a sense of belonging, but that we also respond to them when they are in crisis. We need to listen to that. And I just commend the district, and I thank you, as in spite of, how hard it is sometimes to get into the schools, I am always grateful that it is, because I'm always thinking about the safety of our kids, and we need to make sure we do that. If we have to go, jump one more hurdle to get in, it's okay. And we need to remind ourselves of that there is a purpose for it, that we're as a village taking care of our kids, and that's important. And so I just want to thank you. And I do think, like Member Denny said, we're on the right path. And there are so many members in the town that are just standing up and asking us to do better, and we need to do so. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Miranda. Member White?
I want to echo my colleagues' sentiments and thank you, James, and the leadership team for setting the tone even late last night with the tragedy that happened yesterday. And even though, we're focused a lot on the young children, I saw pictures of them today, and they were holding up their awards, certificates for honor roll and for arts awards. They had a lovely ceremony in the morning, and just to see their little faces and to think of all that has happened to their families and the tragedy. I'm also thinking about the older students and this young man who committed this tragedy, and wondering, what happened to him? Did he feel disconnected at some point? Was he bullied? I mean, I can't help but wonder about his mental health, and wondering what can be done to help all of our children of all ages with all of the issues that the kids are facing with today. And, it is sad to me that our children have to do these drills at school and have to think about, hiding in their classrooms and staying quiet. And it just makes me sad to think about that. But that is the reality of what we have to do to keep our kids safe. And school should be a place of joy and learning and excitement. And it is most days, but these days really can, make you feel a little discouraged. But I have to say to myself, no, we've got to keep moving on, and we've got to keep improving things. We've got to keep taking care of our children, because that's everyone's job.
So thank you all for your comments. On behalf of the entire district, faculty and staff, and all those who are working with our children, I accept that thanks. And I just, words of encouragement for them not to lose their focus and lose their spirit. They're in this job for a reason, and that's because they love working with children. And part of that is making sure that they're safe when they're in our presence. So again, thank you all. I'm sure many of you are probably getting updates from your principals about how things went in their schools, and what are some of the things that they did to support. But in something like this, it just doesn't go away in a day. We'll continue to monitor that. And if anything comes up with families, we just ask you to please reach out to the schools. it is a partnership, and we look forward to enhancing that and enhancing the work that we're doing. So thank you all. And I also want to extend a thanks to the people that sent in emails, not only to myself, but to the principal, giving them words of encouragement on a really sad day and unfortunate day that you got to start out with your students like that in the morning. So, but again, thank you all. It's kind of tough to follow that, but I do have some good news. After a long process, I'm here this evening. I'm joined by two new key members of our leadership team. The first I'm gonna start with Claire Galloway Jones. We're very happy to have Claire come to us. Claire has a bachelor's degree from UMass Boston and a master's degree from Wheelock College in urban education. She has spent several years in the Bedford Public Schools and recently currently, I should say, in the Sharon Public Schools. Claire is the MECO director. She also served as, I believe, the president of the MECO director consortium. And although she's still currently at our Sharon Public Schools, Claire actually spent the day in Milton Public Schools earlier today, meeting with many of our principals, instructional leaders, department heads, nurse, special education leadership. So she's really starting to hit the ground running. So I would like to welcome Claire Galloway Jones officially and publicly to the Milton Public Schools. And if you guys don't mind, we can give her a couple of snaps. And then I would introduce the next person. And I hope he's still on. If you there we go. Garth McKinney, thank you. Garth McKinney is going to join the Milton Public Schools as the next Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Human Resources. Garth got his undergraduate degree in elementary education from Stonehill College. He then went on to pursue a master's degree in education with a major as a reading teacher from Fordham University, Graduate School of Education in New York. Then he also went on and did some work at Northeastern University in recently, or his last degree is a doctorate degree in education administration from the Lynch School of Education at Boston College. Garth himself, even following the interview, it's kind of a funny story. Before signing the contract, before getting the word, he'd already reached out to Janet looking for data and information on the Milton Public Schools. So I would tell you the two of these two are going to make they're going to complement the Milton Public Schools leadership in a great way. They already are assets and they are both eager to get started. So I introduced both Garth as the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Human Resource and Claire Galloway Jones as the new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And then I would open it up for any school committee member that has a comment or a question for either of the newly adopted, and they officially don't start until July 1st, but they technically already started. Any questions for our two candidates? And not candidates, our two new leadership members.
Well, I just want to say welcome to you both, to Ms. Galloway Jones and Dr. McKinney. And it's wonderful to have you here, and we look forward to working with you. We've got lots for you to do, and we look forward to your engaging with the work and becoming a part of Milton Public Schools. So welcome.
I would like to echo what Member Rosemarin said. Welcome to the district. You are joining at a wonderful time where we have this critical mass of really good work just about to take off with our new, the phase 1 of our strategic plan, getting our DEI work up and off the ground. And we've made such great strides academically under the leadership of Dr. Spalding, as well as Janet Sheehan. And I'm just very excited to have you on board, and I can't wait to see what you do for our students and our faculty. Thank you.
Member Varghese? Oh, did you have your hand up?
I did. I just wanted to echo what Member Rosemary and Member Osdeni said. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to welcome, and I look forward to seeing what you have in store for us. So we're very, very excited. Thank you.
I would Sorry, I would then like to turn it over to Garth McKinney or Claire Galloway Jones if there's words that you would like to share with the school committee or the viewing audience. This is a recorded meeting, so it will be shared and the community could look at it. And if you don't say anything, I'm not letting you off the hook that easy. I have a question for you.
Well, I can get started. First, I just want to say thank you for having me here this evening. Today, I spent a wonderful day meeting many of the leadership in the district. Everyone was warm and welcoming. I am very, very excited and to join Milton Public Schools as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. It's work that's really close to my heart. And I think it's going to be a great partnership. I truly believe that this work only is successful by partnering and building relationships. And I think we're about to hit the ground running. I really enjoyed my day today. Looking forward to spending some time with school committee members, as well as people and organizations in the community. I think the only way for us to be successful is truly by partnerships and really getting in there and being willing to listen and being open and understanding really what this work is going to do to enhance the achievement of our students. And, you know, we know we have to focus on some adults, but really have to be mindful that all this work is really about the achievement of students and keeping them at the center of the work. So thank you, and I'm really excited.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. McKinney?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm super excited to come to Milton July 1, although I'm anxiously looking to the end of the school year and finding some time to rest up. But I'm also, as Mr. Jett said, been bothering him and Machine. And so I apologize for some information to read and get ready for a smooth transition. So thank you again. I'm looking forward to joining a great school community and town. So thanks again.
In a spirit of full disclosure, a lot of people are very excited about Dr. McKinney because for the last month, I've been referring to him as Garth Brooks. So I do apologize about that. I can't get that out of my head, but I will say both individuals seem very enthusiastic and very passionate about the work that they do. And again, even though I say I look forward to getting started, I have already started with the ongoing communication with both, same thing with the team. So Claire Galloway Jones, Dr. Garth McKinney, thank you guys very much for joining us this evening. I look forward to our communications in the days and weeks to come. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks again. Have a good night.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about, I'm not sure if people were paying attention to the news that came out of DPH in DESE earlier this afternoon. So I apologize, some of that's breaking news. So I thought it would be very appropriate if I could take a moment just to share my screen with you guys to talk a little bit about COVID and how we anticipate finishing off the end of this academic year and moving into some of our summer programs, which I know a few parents have already asked about. So I'm gonna try this right now to see if I could share my screen. And if someone could let me know if they could see my screen.
Yep.
All righty, let me just go slideshow. So I apologize to the school committee members because I kind of put this together after 5 o'clock because that's when I got the updates on it. But I wanted to walk you through some of the, some school committee members know this information already, and so doesn't the general public. Each week in the blog, we kind of highlight the number of cases that we had. If you go back to the week of Wednesday, it should say Thursday, May 5th to Wednesday, May 11th, we had 12 staff and 73 students in total that tested positive. As you can see, I have the numbers by school. Again, I'm just reiterating what was in the blog very briefly. Then 2 weeks ago, reporting from the 12th to the 18th, we had 14 staff and 88 students. We saw that number climbing. As I indicated before, typically when we see these spikes, it looks like it's an average of 4 to 5 weeks. And as you can see, as of today, the 25th, we had 12 staff and 50 students. That number has gone down a little bit. So we're happy that it's starting to trend in the right direction. And that is for today. So update on COVID-19 testing. For the remainder of the spring, self-tests will continue. Oops, sorry. Self-tests, excuse me, let me get back here. This self-tests will continue to be available as we've been doing all year long. For those parents who want to still opt in for the last 4.5 weeks of the academic year, you can continue to do so. So we're staying status quo to try to maintain in-person activities as best that we can. Summer program for the school-based summer program, and don't worry, I know I'm flying through this as a language. I'm going to give you a 10,000-foot view in just a second. That'll put it all on one page. But we could continue with some of the testing during the summer program for our summer school, extended year services, MSc, any program that we do, with the exception of community schools, that might be a little separate. But we're going to continue with our testing kits as long as we have the surplus. But CIC Health will no longer be available through the state-run program, all of the services that we had for them. We do not do pool testing. We haven't done that all year as it was. We just did the symptomatic testing within the schools and gave people the opportunity to sign into that. For the fall, the state will no longer supply self-tests or other COVID testing services to schools or district. Now that's how it stands for today. For the school year 22-23, DESE and DPH strongly recommend that schools and districts interested in implementing their own testing program limit that program to symptomatic rapid testing only, and then we could purchase it. Now, a lot of school districts, and I'll speak for myself as a superintendent, when we were looking at this was the testing that we've had was budgeted by the state and given by the state. That is not something that was negotiated or even discussed in our budget. So we will look at alternatives, but that is something that superintendents are going to be communicating with the commissioner about and asking that he puts that on it, especially if we start to see a spike in the fall. When I talked about that high level overview, I will send a chart like this in the blog as well. As you can see for the spring, if you go down, the current program is going to continue. We do symptomatic testing. That program continues right there. And then we still have the CIC health supports, including managing and consent forms, those forms that we have that we share with families. That will no longer be available in the fall. For the summer program, we don't do the surveillance testing, so that state program is ending. Schools will have access to state-provided self-tests for the school-based summer programs. That's what we're currently doing now. That will continue. CIC health services will no longer be available. And as I just stated in the fall, there's no state program support. Schools can purchase the self-test through the statewide contact. They did provide superintendents with a contact. That information was just shared with me this afternoon. So I still have to delve through that whole process and see what that looks like and see what the price tag is going to be and try to see what we could do to negotiate to see if that's something we're going to continue. And then the CIC health services are no longer available. New quarantine guidance, and this is effective as of today, 5/25. Quarantine for asymptomatic exposed students, regardless of where their exposure occurred or their vaccination status, is no longer required for schools. Students who are identified as close contacts may continue to attend program as long as they remain asymptomatic. So now students, even if exposed for longer than that 15 minutes that we've been talking about, they still could come to school. They could still, they don't have to quarantine as long as they remain asymptomatic. Those who can mask should do so until day 10. A test on days 2 and 5 is recommended, but not required. So again, we have that testing program I think for the benefit of the school environment, but also the benefit for those at home. If your child is exposed and we still have the testing kits, I strongly encourage and recommend that people test their students on day 2 and 5, even if it's not required. I think that's important for us to get through the next 4.5 weeks, but also if your children plan to participate in the summer program, we want you to do that as well. We all know sometimes there's no set day when you start to develop symptoms. So Some people could be asymptomatic and not even know and be the carrier of the virus and share that or spread that. Isolation for positive cases. Students who test positive must be isolated for at least 5 days. If they are asymptomatic or symptoms are resolving and they have been fever-free for 24 hours, they may return to all school programming activities after day 5, provided one, the student is able to mask. They must do so all the way through day 10. That's very similar to where we are. If the student is unable to mask, they must have a negative test on day 5, or later in order to return to program. And again, that's only if they're unable to mask. So I wanted to share with parents, very similar to what we were talking about, some of the things that we're doing proactively to some of our mitigating strategies. Again, I share this in the blog, but we have purifiers in all of the classrooms, in offices, all classroom and office windows. We encourage them to be open whenever possible. Obviously, downpours and things like that, we still leave them cracked to avoid water coming into the schools, into the windows, or water damage. All MPS, although we're mask optional, I'm strongly encouraging people to wear masks during the school day, especially indoors in large crowds, if they have a concern, a health concern or concern for someone in their household. Obviously, if there are classes where you see a couple of students in the class that may have been out, even though you're still asymptomatic, I encourage you to wear a mask. And if we're going to be in large crowds indoors, whether it's assembly or something like that, I would strongly encourage people to wear masks. And again, I do that so that way we can maintain all of our end of the year activities, but more importantly, keeping people safe. Please continue to encourage your children to do the routine hand washing. Remember that at-home testing kits are still available for our faculty and staff. They can check in with the school building principal or nurse. Considering we experience warming temperatures, if you drive by some of the schools, you might see some of our classes taking place outside on these days where the weather is favorable. And vaccination, as a reminder, vaccines continue to be the best way to protect individuals against the COVID-19. And I will share with you, I'm gonna stop sharing this for a second. We haven't done a vaccination clinic recently, but I will say you can almost go to your pediatrician, your primary care physician, CVS, Walgreens. Some of these facilities still offer the vaccine, and I would encourage you to do it. We're monitoring the situation for those who are 5 years old or younger or under 5 years. There's conversation about where that's heading, and I apologize with the events of the last couple of days. I don't know where that stands because I haven't gotten that update, but I will double check that hopefully before the blog goes home. So I share that with you because I'm not sure if anyone has any questions about where we are. I share it, not recommending to the school committee any change. I just bring it to bring awareness to the larger public, the greater public. Any questions about anything COVID-19? Yes, Dr. Miranda?
Yes, Superintendent Jett, just wondering if you think that by the next school committee member, you'll have a school committee meeting, if you'll have a sense of what the cost might be if we would opt to do a testing program ourselves.
I would love to tell you yes, but I have no control over that. And I had no idea this new data was coming out. This came out today. I actually got that information about 4:45 and try to put something together using the information I already had to kind of give a quick update. So I would hope so, but I'm not sure if I would have that information. And then how much do I get? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Cora Redmond?
Yeah, so back in, I think it was late February when you took away the mask mandate, you said that those other mitigation strategies of having the air purifiers on and having windows open would be enforced. And I haven't seen that happen. So I'm just wondering what your plan is to continue to do that and to try to enforce those better so that those strategies are keeping us safe.
So Cora, I appreciate your comments and I don't know how comfortable you feel, but I think if you talk to any faculty and staff, they've received several emails from me, meetings, principals have been not only asked, but told to make sure that that happens. If there is a teacher or teachers in particular that do not follow that code, and if you want to share that with me, I will be happy to take that information and have that conversation with those individual teachers myself.
Okay, but there isn't any like other systematic way of making sure that each classroom has those in place?
So every classroom has an air purifier in it. Every classroom that should be turned on. Most classes, and I'm saying most classes, have windows to the outside that could be open. Obviously, the class where we have our typical in-person school committee meetings, that is a class, but it does not have windows to the outside, but it has rooftop units that are open. Anyone that's experienced that room. I know Member Bakis and Chair Rosemary took a walk with me the other day, and they saw that it is cold in that room, even on a hot day. Those windows are open so that nighttime ambient air is filtering through all the time. Those rooftop units are open, but there's no systematic way. It'll be very difficult for me to get into every building and look into every class to see if that happens, but that's where we need to rely on our administration, our principals, our vice principals to make sure that that is being executed.
Okay, thank you.
And better yet, I don't want you to come to me and share any names. It's very easy for me to look at the schedule and make sure that I have every single teacher on your list that I speak to make sure that that happens. I don't want you to call teachers out, so you don't feel like you have to email me or come to me. Thank you very much. Chair Rosemary.
Superintendent, I was wondering about the discontinuation of the CIC health staff, and it's been so long. I don't really know. Do we have CIC staff who have been working in Milton Public Schools over these last few months that will be leaving as a result of this change?
So we started out with that, if you remember. That's how we started the test and stay way back in, I believe it was supposed to start at the first day of school. It didn't get off the ground until mid to late September. But through the process of opera money, through the process of EFSA money, we were able to secure the supports that we needed prior to the pandemic, but it's only helping us out during the pandemic. So the primary supports that we're getting from CIC at this point in time, the guidance, the hotline, the forms, and obviously the testing. That's where we got the testing in conjunction with DESE.
Okay, all right, great. I have one other question, if I may.
Okay.
The surveillance program, has that been being implemented in these last months? And if so, how many people are involved in that?
The surveillance testing is the pool testing. What we have is we have the take-home test kits that we provide. That's not mandatory. That's optional. Some people do it. Some people do it sporadically. Some people only do it when they feel there's a concern that there's been some exposure, but they opted in. We make sure it's available on a designated day in each of our schools that students and staff can access that. But that's the only testing. And again, I've said this several times on these public meetings and any opportunity I have, we do asymptomatic testing, but it's not, it's child wakes up, you send them into school sick. I think as much as I could say that, I want to say that because some people would do that. And very innocently, maybe you go to school and have the nurse check you out. We don't want that. If your child is sick, keep them home, particularly if they're presenting with some of the symptoms that are on that at-home checklist, self-checklist.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd be interested in hearing also, like Dr. Miranda asked about what it might cost for us to continue to make those self-tests available, because if there are families who are taking advantage of that to be able to check and see if their children are well or not, then I think that would be a good thing to consider.
So what I could possibly do to probably give you some baseline information is ask each individual building how many people are accessing the test on the average each week. That's one thing. And then also reach out to Desi. Remember, we never paid for any of this, so I don't even know how much these test kits cost. We just had to put in a request for the number we want and then go from there. And we kind of put in a request for extra so we could have them as a surplus, God forbid, if we needed it. So I could definitely try to get those numbers, but I just didn't want to guarantee it. I'm gonna do my best to get it, but I couldn't guarantee it by the next meeting. That's not within my control. Member Ross Denny?
Given what you shared tonight about the testing likely not being funded in the fall, and many of the mitigation efforts that we relied on over the past 2 years going away by state mandate, what Cora said is even more concerning. And it is not the best use of your and your administrators' time to police teachers. But if the leadership team could find a way, or just literally just brainstorming, how can we make a safer environment, a safer unmasked environment for students without it being an administrative burden? I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but as a parent who recognizes that there are some families who still do have kids masked, or families who believe their kids are going to be okay because the state says they're going to be okay, right? That's the blanket security. Well, if the state says it's good, it's good. I don't think the motivations behind the state changing the policy may not mirror what parents are anticipating. So if there's any we can do, more monitoring or encouragement to keep those windows open and those units on, without kids feeling like they're tattling, which I appreciate you. I literally, the reason why I raised my hand was Cora emailing to rat our teachers out. Like I don't want the MEA looking at any one of our students side-eyed because they might be turning in their teachers, but there's an expectation that the adults are far more culpable in all of this, because they're on our staff. And I want to make sure that our kids, including our school committee members that are elected, feel safe in our buildings. So thank you, Cora, for what you shared, because there's a lot of information that we don't have because we're not in the buildings every day. So you've been our eyes and ears on a lot of things, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, and my last little bit is to really talk about, I hope people pay attention. Tomorrow's blog is going to give a list of some of the end of the year activities. It's a lot going on, from graduations. I think Dr. Carroll talked about it this evening, from the Unity night at the Tucker. There was senior night tonight for softball. You know, you have music programs, you got concerts, you got field days, you got field trips, you got the graduation for the class of 2022. There's so much happening, and it's going to be a very busy time. Without a doubt, we also got the annual town meeting coming up. I would encourage all parents and guardians, it is virtual, as best you can, to tune in. There are a lot of things that are going to be discussed that are related to the town, but in particular, some of those things that are very important to the Milton Public Schools budget that I think people need to hear and should hear and stay in tune. I think people elevated some of those concerns in the aftermath of the tragedy and what we're doing. Some of those positions that we are lobbying for and asking for that we desperately need. Some of those positions are in that budget, and making sure that we have the staffing to support the students when they walk through the doors of the Milton Public Schools. So there's a lot going on, and I hope people, I know it's kind of tough and you're juggling a lot. If you're a household of two, maybe divide and conquer to make sure that you're getting the taste or information from all of the activities that you can. So some enjoyable, some meetings, some budget talks, but we hope that people tune in. So thank you guys very much. And at this point in time, I would yield my time to Chair Rosemary.
Thank you, Superintendent Jett. At this point on the agenda, I'd like to open up the floor to citizen speak. If we have any members who would like to speak, you can raise your hand and you will be promoted to share your thoughts.
I just promoted Laura, but I think it takes a little bit of time before she appears on the screen. But I no longer see an attendee, so my hope is she's a panelist.
I see her
Yes.
name as a panelist. Laura, are you there?
Laura, if you're out there, if you want to turn on your camera, you would appear, or if you just want to unmute yourself, you could, there you go.
There you
Thank
go.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Madam Chair Rosemary, for inviting me on to the school committee meeting this evening. This is my first school committee meeting, so it's been nice to listen to all of you and what you guys discuss on a regular basis. And thank you to all the school committee members and Superintendent Jett for letting me just to say a couple of remarks on our community health assessment we'll be doing townwide. So I just have my little handout here. I'm just going to read off of, if that's okay with everyone right now. Sorry, just going to adjust my computer. Good evening. My name is Laura Delicai, and we have some exciting news to share with you. The Milton Health Department has received funding to conduct a community health assessment, also known as a CHA, and formulate a community health improvement plan, also known as a CHIP, thanks to the efforts of Senator Walter Timmelty in securing federal ARPA money for this project. The Milton Health Department has never before conducted a formal assessment to uncover what types of health challenges, service gaps, and health disparities that exist in Milton, yet is a best practice for local and state health departments as well as community hospitals. This process will allow us to collect information through stakeholder interviews, focus groups, and surveys, and by analyzing existing statistical data collected by our partner and governmental organizations to help us better understand and address Milton's greatest health needs, and identify those who may be at greatest risk. We have access to regional epidemiologists who will help us collect and analyze the findings, and this data will be used to inform the development of a strategic action plan, also referred to as the Community Health Improvement Plan, the CHIP, which will focus on addressing preventable illnesses and injuries, as well as the mental and behavioral health needs of adult and young residents. Ultimately, we hope that this process and data will bring new policies, procedures, and resources that will promote a healthier Milton. We hope that our town agencies, partners, and residents will help to make this a successful effort by sharing their ideas, perspectives, and data. I am also pleased to announce that the Board of Health unanimously voted to approve Milton resident Laurie Stillman as the project manager to oversee the design and implementation of the CHA and CHIP and guide the team over the next 9 to 12 months. Ms. Stillman has over 35 years of postgraduate experience managing public health organizations and community health improvement programs across New England and is thoroughly familiar with many health data sources that exist within the town and has fostered excellent relationships with community leaders and institutions across all sectors. In addition to Ms. Stillman, our assessment team will consist of the health director, Caroline Kinsella, myself, Laura Delicai, as the assistant health director, and 2 regional epidemiologists. Our efforts will also be coordinated with the Milton Coalition, a program run through the health department. The Milton Health Department is committed to ensuring that the assessment and strategic plan development will be transparent, community-based, participatory process. We are excited that the Partnership for a Healthy Milton, a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting a healthier Milton, will serve as the project's core community advisory committee, leading the charge to reach out to local community and grassroots organizations, leaders, and residents to assist us with a comprehensive, thoughtful, and respectful plan of action. If you know of anyone who may be interested in joining the Community Advisory Committee through the Partnership for a Healthy Milton, we are taking applications or letters of interest until June 15th of this year. We are very fortunate to have already many residents expressing interest. Please contact the Health Department by June 15th at 617-898-4886 to be considered for a position on the Community Advisory Committee. The time commitment would be meeting up to 2 hours every 4 to 6 weeks over a 9 to 12-month period. We thank you for allowing us to make this announcement, and we hope that you will be involved and point us to any relevant data that might provide us with insights, knowledge, and perspectives on how we can make Milton a healthier town to live in for all. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions at this time that they may want to ask?
Thank you very much, Laura. This being part of our citizen speak portion, we don't allow a back and forth of question and answers for this part of the meeting, but we look forward to hearing back from you about the results of your needs assessment and how this goes in the community, and especially anything that might have an impact on the Milton Public Schools. So thank you for coming and sharing that information.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and have a great night, everyone. Take care.
Do we have anyone else with a raised hand?
I don't see anyone else with a raised hand, but I give it a second if anyone has any comments. If they raise their hand using in the bottom of your computer, and if I see a hand up, I would elevate it to panelist so you could speak.
Okay.
I only see three people on, other than so at this point in time, I would say if you would like to move on.
Very good. All right, thank you. So next on the agenda is summer meeting dates and retreat dates, and what we're thinking about for this summer is a one-day retreat that would be like a half of a day. Generally, when we've done them in the past, they've started at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We'll meet for 1 or 2 hours, have a light dinner, and then continue on for a few more hours into the evening. During that time, I'm hoping to bring in someone from MASC to do a little work with us, as well as do our goal setting for the year. So that's the plan for the retreat. And in terms of dates, we're interested in possibly the first week of August, and want to get a sense of what your availability might be during that week. Are there any dates that are there any members who are going to be out of town that week, for one, and if not that, are there any dates that are just out? Maybe through process of elimination, we can arrive at a date. Member White?
I have a hard, Mondays and Thursdays would be hard for me. I'd have to get permission to leave work early, and that would be a little challenging because they're short-staffed in the summer with vacations. But if it's the only date that's agreeable to the whole group, I can ask now and get permission, so it should be all right.
Okay. But Tuesday or Wednesday might be possible for you. So that would be August 2nd or August 3rd. Dr. Carroll? Thank you, Betty.
Yeah, of those, I'm supposed to be out of town that week, but I think I can be flexible to be here. But I do have something for work, Zoom, that ends at 5 on Tuesday the 2nd, and I wouldn't be able to meet until after that. So of those 2 dates, the Wednesday would be better. The 3rd
is better for you. Okay, we're narrowing down. Okay. Anyone else? Is August 3rd? Will August 3rd work for the rest of you? Member Varghese?
Yeah, I can do August 3rd.
Wonderful.
I'm available.
Great. Super. Dr. Miranda, does that work for you?
It does.
Okay. Well, then August 3rd it will be. Would people be able to arrive as early as 4 o'clock to get started? Would that be possible, or is 5 o'clock better?
5 is always better, but I can do 4.
Yeah, same.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, let's shoot for 4, possibly 5. I haven't come up with an agenda yet, and we still need to confirm with MASC person about the timing, but having a date and a ballpark beginning time of 4 or 5 would be perfect. So that's terrific. And then the other meeting in August is right before the beginning of school, is August 24th, Wednesday, August 24th. And I think from Charlene Roach that's kind of an important date for us to be able to meet before the beginning of school. Dr. Carroll, do you have a comment, question?
I was just, before we moved on from the retreat planning, I just wanted to say I totally support the idea of MASC sort of having some, I don't know if that is someone who can help facilitate our meeting. I remember that was something we sort of considered as an option last year and didn't end up doing that, but I just wanted to voice my support for, trying to prioritize that. I feel like it could be a good, helpful thing for us.
Good. Yeah, I feel that way as well. Thank you. Dr. Miranda?
So this is in relation to the August 24th date. I'm actually going to be out of town. I'll be in California, so it would be really hard probably for me to even Zoom in.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Member White?
So my question was, are you thinking that on the 24th, we're going to be remote, or are you thinking it's going to be an in-person meeting?
That's a good question. Well, it remains to be seen. I think the thinking is that we will begin meeting in person, but a lot will depend on what COVID does and if we can have the room set up. I'm really hoping that Milton Access will be able to help us set up the room for hybrid meetings. We haven't resolved that yet. I don't know exactly about the timing for when that might be available.
I'm supposed to be on vacation that week also, and I would love to once again make a push for maintaining remote meetings. I think that our participation is higher when it's remote, and it does give a lot more flexibility than when we were meeting in person.
Yeah, I have to check with Joe Emerson. Thank you for that comment about the open meeting law that has been under emergency provisions during COVID. As the last I had heard was that emergency provision was expiring in July, but I don't know if there's been any movement to continue that or not. I don't know if Superintendent Jed or Assistant Superintendent.
That's what I was going to say. It's still, as of right now, it expires July 15th. There hasn't been any discussion that I've heard yet about extending that.
Yeah, okay.
I think we should still be able to decide together that we want to offer remote access for people to join Citizen Speak, for example. But in terms of our ability to meet as a committee. So I'm wondering then can we look at maybe, is it possible to meet the week before that, August 17th? Or, I mean, that wouldn't work to have a meeting if 2 of our members can't be there.
Right. Well, I'm gonna have to check back with Charlene. Are people available on the 17th? That, I see some nodding heads. Okay, let me check on the 17th and whether that's possible. And I'll get back to you at our meeting next week. How's that sound? Sound good? Very good. Okay. Any other comments, questions about summer plans? Okay, let me just look at the agenda here. So next is the school committee, subcommittees, and advisory committees. And you all received a copy of the current year's subcommittee listing. And I forwarded to you this afternoon an updated beginning update for next year's subcommittees. And I just wanted to just highlight for you. Let me just see if I can find it. Hold on. What some of those changes are. And basically what I'll be asking you all to do is if you can go through this list, and if you're on a subcommittee now that you'd like to stay on, let me know. If you'd like to switch to other subcommittees, let me know that as well. And if everybody can get back to me with the subcommittees that they would be interested in being on for this coming year by June 10th, then I can try to put together what everyone has requested and see where we stand at that point. And we'll have a meeting, our final meeting of the year on June 15th. And we may need to do some resolving of sort of moving some things around if we have, say, 4 people who want to be on a subcommittee and we can only have 3, for instance. So if you could all get back in touch with me by June 10th, that would be great. And on the updated list, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. One committee that we're removing from our list is the transportation a committee that has been inactive for this past year. So that one will be coming off. Also, I'm not sure with the bargaining team whether we'll be finishing our bargaining before next year, whether that will be continuing. I don't know where that stands. I don't know if Dr. Carroll or Member Ross Denny or Superintendent Jett, if any of you can fill me in.
Well, so the goal
Timing
is to complete negotiations before the end of the school year.
Great.
So that's what we're working towards right now.
Okay. Okay. So then in terms of the bargaining team, I don't think we need a bargaining team during an off years, since we'll be just completing, or will we?
We should have a standing bargaining team, is my understanding, to address like a memorandum of understanding that may come up for a given issue.
Okay.
You know, just to kind of be prepared to, that's my understanding, Mr. Jett. I don't know if you have a different. idea.
I believe so. We don't know where COVID's going to hit. You might have members of the bargaining team negotiate or work with the association on issues regarding return to school, depending on where we are with COVID. There
Right.
could be other items that are kind of born out of this current bargaining thing that might require us to do some ongoing work with certain aspects of the contract. So I would say yes, it's something that
Okay.
needs to maintain.
Good. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So we'll leave that on. And then the joint town school committees, I think now I'm looking at the updated one. There was one on there that I believe is not in existence right now, but I'm leaving on the town capital improvement planning committee. But I think there was another one. I don't know if anybody has the other. Let me just see if I can pull that up. Oh, Assistant Superintendent Dexter, do you?
I believe that was the Town Consolidation Committee. Was that
Right.
the one you're referring
Yeah.
to? That
Right.
has really been dormant for 4 or 5 years, if
Yeah.
not more.
Yeah, I think as long as I've been on school committee. So remove that from the list. Member Rostani?
I would say that I feel like the joint committee between the select board and the school committee has been a proxy for that, from the perspective that lots of decisions have been made and voted upon in that setting.
Right.
And, we always will have representation there, but it's mostly been people from the finance committee.
Finance, yeah.
In addition to the finance committee's separate meetings.
Right. And those have been good. I think those have been very collaborative meetings, and I hope those will continue and along those lines. And then under devolved responsibilities, Assistant Superintendent Dexter and Member White explained to me that the payroll warrant role is no longer part of the school committee responsibilities. So we'll just have the vendor warrant responsibility there. And that has typically been handled by the chair of finance. Dr. Craighead was doing it before, and Member White, I think you were saying that you would be able to continue with that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So those are basically, if you take a look at the subcommittee list and let me know what you're interested in doing, and I'll try to compile what we get, and then we'll discuss it at our meeting on June 15th. Does that sound okay? All right, let me just. Okay, and then the last thing in this part of the agenda is approving the school year calendar for next year, 22-23 school year calendar. It has been approved in draft form up until now. We approved it earlier in the year to be sure that we had let people know when the beginning of school would be, et cetera. But now we have, we need to provide final approval for this. And there were a couple of small edits made on this calendar, but otherwise I think it's pretty much the same as we had seen before. Dr. Carroll?
Yes, if it's okay, I just wanted to mention one thing as we vote to approve the final, the official version here, because since the last time we discussed this calendar and did vote, sort of approved it in tentative draft form, I have heard, I don't know if any of the rest of you have, I have heard feedback from the community with sort of questions and concerns, honestly, about the morning PD late start change. Concerns from parents about the logistics of like how that will impact them in childcare and whatnot. And I do recall, and I know that there was I think a positive intent in making that change and adjustment to try a new way of fitting in the necessary professional development time for our teachers in a way that would actually be less disruptive. I know that I recall that being sort of the conversation that led to trying this as a new thing. And I guess I just wanted to say, as I get prepared to vote to approve the calendar, that I have heard that feedback. I understand the concerns that people have shared, and I just sort of count on us continuing to take the feedback as we try this for the coming year, and see how it works, both for families and faculty and staff. And I know that we're always prepared to kind of pivot based on feedback and, based on how this new schedule works out, like maybe we'll continue with this plan for future years, or maybe we would adjust. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there because it has been a number of people have raised that for me.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Carroll. Mr. Jett?
Yes, Dr. Carroll, I believe I got a couple of emails as well regarding the concern for that. The hope and the thinking about this, which has been on the draft, was if we were giving people or giving folks, parents and guardians, as much advance notice as possible, that they would hopefully put plans in place for those who access community schools. I met with Martha Sandoval. Community schools will service the same students that would access community schools during the day. We will provide the snacks for those students there. I want to say to anyone that's out there, some people are asking, or two people have asked me, well, what is the time frame? It will be a 2-hour delay. So whatever time your school starts, if you're at Collycott in Cunningham, your school starts at 8:10 or 8:20, then it's 2 hours later than that. And we will coordinate with the buses on those days. If you're Pierce Middle School in the high schools, you would start at approximately 7:50. I know that each of the schools might fluctuate by a minute or so with that, but it's a 2-hour delay in the buses. If you get outside, if you go to the bus 7:05, then you will go to the bus stop at 9:05. It's a 2-hour delay either way you do it. And the reason why I didn't put more information out there is because we haven't solidified that vote. But and I know some people ask, well, will you serve breakfast? We could work on having snacks, but if students are getting in 2 hours late, they're getting closer to that lunchtime in their school day, so they will be moving into lunch. So my hope is if those who are accessing community schools, they will have a snack. For those who don't, my hope and expectation, they will eat breakfast at home. If not, they will come into the schools in a short time thereafter. They will be heading to some of the lunch times.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Jett. Member Varghese?
Hi, yeah, that was actually my question was when would the start time be? Just, I know a lot of families, parents who are working outside of the house are encouraged to go back into the office. So I just wanted to know how that would work logistically. Would there be any before school, like after school on half days, would there be any offerings like that just to help as a backup if they can't get childcare?
As of right now, it's just the community schools. And the reason why it's that way, those are a lot of our Unit D members and folks outside of the district participate in those. When it's before schools, we have all faculty and staff that will be engaged in that professional development that we would like to kind of execute. And for those who are viewing it, want to know why we were talking about before schools, once the school day starts, there's so many things that can happen that might change, that could potentially pull faculty and staff, principals out of that PD, because we got to deal with whatever happens on that given day. By starting the morning with the PD, we have that uninterrupted, very directed time that we could do it. So for us, that PD will technically last for about an hour and 45 minutes. And then we give the people the 15 minutes to transition back or get ready to receive the students for the start of the day.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for raising those questions about the late start days, because that is a change, and I think as Dr. Carroll suggested that we should stay open to feedback and be ready to reevaluate for next year. But I do think that it's a creative opportunity for getting some more professional development hours in that our staff really need, and it's difficult to find that time. So thank you for raising those questions, and if there's anything else that Milton Community Schools might be able to do, I don't know if sometimes they have special programs for half days, half school days, or whatever, that whether they might be able to extend that opportunity for families for these days. It might be something that people would be able to take advantage of. So any other questions about the calendar, comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the calendar.
So moved.
And we have a second?
Second.
Very good. Okay, and take a roll call vote. Member Varghese?
Yes.
Dr. Carroll?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
Member Ross Denny?
Yes.
Member White?
Yes.
And Chair Rose Marin, yes. Okay, thank you very much. So that will be approved, and we'll go on to Finance Subcommittee.
Okay.
Member White?
So we have two vendor warrants to approve tonight. It's warrant number 46 dated May 6th in the amount of $468,668.39. Can I have a motion for that warrant?
I make
So
the
moved.
motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
I didn't hear a second, did I?
Second.
Did someone second? Okay, thank you. Okay, Member Ross Denny,
Yes.
Chair Rose Marin,
Yes.
Dr. Carroll,
Yes.
Dr. Miranda,
Yes.
Member Varghese.
Yes.
Okay, and then the second vendor warrant is number 47 dated May 12th. Amy, just will you check this amount, because I had a hard time reading it off of the I think it's $302,762.62.
That's what I have.
That's right.
Mhm.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay, can I just,
have it in
it
front
was
of me.
hard to know if it was a 2 or a 3. Okay, can I have a motion on this?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Member Ross Denny,
Yes.
Chair Rose Marin,
Yes.
Dr. Carroll,
Yes.
Dr. Miranda,
Yes.
and Member Varghese.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the second item on the finance is a revision in the FY23 operating budget that has to do with our ARPA request. I was going to have Amy speak to this a little bit tonight.
Sure. So when the ARPA request or when the ARPA amount was approved by the select board from the FY23 budget, which included positions that were in the rollover budget, as well as positions that were in the supplemental ask, that was included in the operating budget at the cost of the positions. But as soon as you pull them out of the operating budget and pay for positions with federal funds, MTRS, which is the Mass Teachers Retirement System, charges a surcharge on those salaries if you pay them with federal funds. So we're seeking an additional $60,750 from ARPA to cover that surcharge related to these positions. We did meet with the Select Board Finance Committee, Member White and myself on Monday morning or Tuesday morning, I forget at this point. They voted to set it aside in ARPA, but not approve it at this time. They wanted to wait until September when we had true figures for what the salaries for those positions would be and what the known surcharge was, rather than go by an estimate. But what we are asking the school committee to do is to approve the estimate of $60,750, because due to the timing of when we were notified of their meeting, we didn't have a chance to bring it to the school committee first. So we would like to ask to have that considered for approval by the school committee so that when September comes, we can revisit it. And if need be, we could change the estimate to the actual at that point in time.
Okay. So I will make a motion to move that number for school committee approval tonight. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. So we'll do another roll call vote. Does anyone have any questions before we do the roll call vote? No. Well, the good news is that they are earmarking that money for us. So it's not going to be spent somewhere else. It's going to be available for us in September. So I think that was kind of the good news out of that meeting. Okay. So Member Ross Denny?
Oh, I think Dr. Carroll.
Okay, Judge Carroll.
Sorry, one quick question. So is that an annual surcharge on these positions?
It would be if those positions were approved for more than 1 year, but it's only in ARPA for 1 year, those positions that we're talking about. I do have a spreadsheet if anybody wants to see it before you vote that shows what those positions are and which ones would be subject to the surcharge, because it's only those positions that are eligible to be in MTRS, and that's based upon the license that they need to have. I believe that's how it works.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. All right. So we're going to have a roll call. Member Ross Denny?
Yes.
Okay. Chair Rose Marin?
Yes.
Member Dr. Carroll?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
Anna Varghese?
Yes.
And me, yes. Okay, that's the end of the Finance Committee report for tonight.
Very good. Thank you, Member White. And then policy. Dr. Carroll?
Thanks. So tonight, the policy report just consists of updating from our last meeting, which was this past Monday, the 23rd. We have sent to the full school committee for a first reading tonight 4 policies. Several of us were present at Monday's meeting, so I apologize if any of this is redundant, but just to make sure we're clear on sort of the path that these 4 policies have taken to our discussion tonight. These are 4 interrelated policies on topics pertaining to non-discrimination. We are considering recommended revisions that were provided to us by the MASC, Massachusetts Association of School Committees. These recommendations are part of an ongoing effort by MASC to share with school committees across Massachusetts suggested revisions that allow policies to stay updated in line as statutes sort of evolve and language changes. So that's the goal of MASC in providing these kind of on a rolling basis, various updates to policies. We have the 4 policies, which were all pre-existing policies, AC, ACR, ACAB, and JICK. These are the 4 policies that the policy subcommittee has voted to open discussion of the full school committee tonight. I hope that everyone has had a chance to read through the red lines as provided by our legal counsel who reviewed the policies, and we can see their suggestions and comments around language. That was the reason why these policies have sort of taken some time to make their way here, because we opened discussion of these quite some time ago, and we then kind of took a pause on all of our policy work with the election to allow us to just pick things back up. These are some of the pieces that we need to attend to before the end of this school year. Would we like to walk through the 4 policies one by one? What would Member Ross Denny, I know you were not there on Monday when we walked through them. We also left off that meeting saying if anyone had any questions, from that discussion that they would like to bring to tonight, that would also be fine. I suppose we'll open them one by one with a motion. We don't need a motion actually, because these are just first readings. But maybe we'll just go through them one by one, make sure questions and feedback are taken in. And then those changes could be reflected for a second reading at our next meeting. Should we begin with policy AC, non-discrimination? That is the one that I still need to pull up. That one actually looks like one that was not, hold on.
You're talking about the procedures response.
It looks like that one actually may not have been attached to our email.
You say it's AC-R?
No, it's just AC.
Yeah, I think.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice that.
Yes, Member Carol, it's not attached. It's missing from this one.
Does anyone mind? I apologize for that. I can see Charlene attach the other 3. Can we just share our screen and look at it now? Is that possible? You had them in an earlier email about policy subcommittee, but let me try to find that. Sorry. There it is. Okay. Am I able to share my screen? Let me make sure I'll have the right window up. Sorry, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Okay. You see this window? This is AC, non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation.
Yes, I see it.
Okay. The key changes here, the addition of this language actual or perceived, shared and ancestry. Bettina Toner is the attorney who reviewed this policy on our behalf. The suggested changes. This is actually the shortest of the policies. As you can see, the purpose is to define retaliation in this part. You can see here the updated state statute that we are aligning to with this policy. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this? I'll leave it here and let you read through it. Just if anyone wants me to scroll down, just let me know.
I think this one is really quite straightforward.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay, so any other questions on this policy for the first reading? Okay, you can see here the cross-reference to other related policies, and we'll be looking at the others now. Would you like me to continue sharing my screen with the other three that you did receive attachments for?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so ACR, you want to go to that one next? That's on the list.
Yep. Okay, so you should be seeing ACR, procedures for responding to complaints of discrimination, harassment, and retaliation.
Yep, I see it.
Yep. So here, Caitlin Leach is another person on our legal team. These are suggested changes that we are the way that they have processed the recommendations from MASC. Continuing to define discrimination and harassment. Adding in this piece about grades, achievements, or other school matters. Here you see the addition of the definition of retaliation that we saw in the last policy. There is the separate policy that we'll be looking at that goes more deeply into sexual harassment. So my understanding is that's what this part has been sort of removed out of this policy, and we now have the separate policy that pertains to it. But here, one suggestion that did emerge from our discussion on Monday and will be reflected for our second reading is that this section will have what we discussed was to include Assistant Superintendent Sheehan's contact information there. And that would really obviously be in effect for like 2 weeks. And that at that point need to be updated when we're joined officially by Garth McKinney to take over that role as our Title IX coordinator in that assistant superintendent position. So that is one change that we didn't have the opportunity to add in between Monday and today, but that will be there for next week. Lays out the procedure. One thing we discussed at the meeting on Monday, the question came up around, how does this connect to the new reporting system that was put in place this past year? Superintendent Judd, I don't know if you want to speak to that. I can't see you on my screen here when I'm sharing, but I guess just to sum up what we discussed around that was these policies don't impact that process. The process remains in place. These policies are sort of complementing the process that now exists, which families can access through the district website and through channels that are available to them in their school buildings.
Yes, that is correct, Dr. Carroll. And basically what I was saying is the reporting system doesn't change the procedures that we follow. It just streamlines the reporting system and it allows us to do it in a systematic way. What I shared in the group, sometimes you get reports through a phone call, sometimes an email, sometimes in person. All administrators have been advised to insert that information into the system. So when asked, there's a tracking mechanism and we can share how many complaints of whatever the type of harassment or complaint may be. So, but yes, this is complementary to what we will be doing as far as the reporting system. It doesn't change that.
This is the other change that came out of the, you see the blank public schools. This will obviously be updated to say the Milton Public Schools. It reflects the fact that this language has been provided as a template to all districts to use. So we just need to make sure we get Milton into that one. Adding page numbers was the other thing that we talked about. Does anyone have any other questions about this policy? Josh Coleman is the other attorney. So all the people you see in here are the folks who have weighed in. Okay. So then I will switch over to ACAB. This is the sexual harassment policy. You can see, more definitions of terms. A different language around responding promptly to allegations. Again, the addition around threats concerning one's grades, achievements, or other school matter. And then this paragraph has the new language in it. Just leave that there for people to look at.
And while people are looking at this, Dr. Carroll, just so you know, the policy AC has been sent to all school committee members. If you needed to go back to that, I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
It should be at the top of your emails from Charlene Roach.
Yep.
Updated language down here about, and again, this is just to stay updated with Title IX. Language around the due process protections. Where to find additional information. Okay. Any questions on this policy? Okay. The last one of this package is the policy harassment of students. See some of the similar language we've seen in the other ones added in. And it's a short one. Those are all the updates there. One thing that did come up in our policy meeting was just the clarification that this policy JICK is pertains to harassment of students, there's a separate policy, JIC, that we had begun discussion of in the policy subcommittee over the sort of in March. That is a student conduct policy, which we will continue to look at and update with the goal of bringing it more in line with our student handbooks. And we just haven't gotten back to that one yet. But that is distinct from this policy. This was in the group that was recommended, these revisions recommended by MASC. And so that JIC sort of is still on deck, if you like, in the policy subcommittee phase. And when we're ready to bring that for a full school committee discussion, we will do that. Does anyone have questions about this policy, JICK? Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen, just make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, so we will bring these back next week. That will be quick, just for a second reading, a vote on approving these 4 policies. And that's all I have for policy for tonight. We'll have a new set of topics for next week, but when we talk about our next week agenda, I'll get to that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Carroll. That was a lot to go through. Appreciate your taking the time to do that. Next on the agenda is a strategic planning advisory report. And I just have a brief update on our last meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee and beginning plans for developing the next phases of our strategic plan, which include the action plans and the metrics. And the Superintendent Jett has reached out to a group of people to form the metrics advisory group, and sounded like Superintendent Jett, I don't know if you'd like to report on that at all, that group. And
yeah, so I reached out to several people individually. All of them accepted the role to be on it. Quite frankly, it seems like it's the same people that all the other ones overtaxed, no work, but they're committed to doing the work. We were going to have a meeting, obviously or pushing the meeting out, but now with the change of the annual town meeting and everything else that was going on, it just delayed that. We skipped a week thinking we have an annual town meeting, so I have to reschedule that. The second thing I want to share, tomorrow we're going to be meeting with our leadership team tomorrow afternoon in a library at Milton High School. I know you talked about your advisory date, but looking at the strategic plan and identifying those North Stars in which we could work with and really hone in on that and continue to work on that. So even though there's a metrics team, there's still going to be leadership team input in how do we do that. And we're looking to do an hour retreat. I think I shared this last summer at the retreat. For me personally, I think the leadership retreat should go before the school committee. So when the school committee is making their goals, they get some feedback. So I'm in the process of trying to secure a facilitator, and my hope is to do that at the end of June or early July. It will be off campus, hopefully somewhere respectable and nice that allow us to do some team building and really delve into the work that needs to get done. So those are a couple of things that are on the horizon, and I hope to get back. I reached out to a couple of people as facilitators, and I just got 2 more people today that I could reach to. One of the individuals, Dr. Danisha Amante Jackson, I'm waiting to hear back from. She does a lot of work with DEEP, Disrupting Equity Education program. I don't know if people have heard of her. She's done a lot of work. She's working with our group. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I didn't get that connection. We had a meeting set last week, and unfortunately, I was 8 minutes late to that meeting, and her time is precious, and she moved on, but we're rescheduled again for follow-up. So my hope is we could get her to come in. If not, I got a couple of other people that we could count on to be facilitators, and I would share that with folks on this committee if they have a great facilitator helping us do this work. And the rationale behind it, getting the feedback from the leadership team. We want everybody to be invested in the process. When we ourselves become the facilitators, we're not 100% engaged because you're walking around and checking on individual groups. We all want to be immersed in the work that needs to be done.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that update, Superintendent Jett. And it's one of the reasons that I pushed the school committee retreat a little bit later into August. Originally, we'd been looking at a couple of weeks earlier, and in conversation with Superintendent Jett and about the timing of the leadership team's work, we wanted to have enough time for there to be a good sequence of effort. And I'm really excited about the strategic plan informing the action plan work of the leadership team, and then that will inform our goal setting for next year, as well as Superintendent Jett's goal setting for next year. And so I think and then once we have our metrics team work done, hopefully in the fall, we'll have all the pieces put together. But I'm very excited about aligning all of our efforts along with the strategic plan that we have now. And I think it's a wonderful step for the district. Any comments, questions? Not. We'll just move on to the next agenda item, which is a next meeting. Our next meeting is in a week. This has been a funny period, as Superintendent Jett was saying, about having meetings scheduled, town meeting, delaying things because of when town meeting was supposed to be, and then town meeting got moved, and a lot of meetings have gotten kind of thrown off. But our next meeting will be on Wednesday, June 1st, and I know, Dr. Carroll, you've got a big item on the agenda. You'll be bringing back all of these policies that we discussed here tonight for second reading and a vote. And you'll have some others for first reading then, or will it be?
Two for first reading, yes, which we plan to discuss in a subcommittee meeting next Tuesday afternoon, which has been cross-posted. So anybody is welcome to join that discussion at 4 p.m. Tuesday. These are updates to our wellness policy and meal charge policy, which are things we must update this school year based on the work happening in Health and Wellness Advisory Committee, which Member White chairs, and that's meeting Friday morning this week, right? So there's been a lot of work happening this past year to update the goals and much bigger picture work, but there is this slice of making sure our policies are reflecting the work that's happening in this area. And that's a conversation that will sort of rise up to this level for next week. I don't know, Member White, do you have any other information about that? Or, but look, I know we'll be joined by Jackie Morgan at Tuesday's meeting to sort of be able to inform our discussion and understanding of the proposed changes to these policies from her vantage point. So that will be added for next week. And then while I'm talking about next week, we will also be needing to do an executive session following our school committee meeting next week, where Member Ross, Denny, and I will be able to update you all on the status of our bargaining processes in progress contracts with both the MEA and the AFSCME, which is will just be getting underway next week.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll get that. Thank you for the reminder about the executive session, because we were just working on the agenda. This back-to-back meetings. We're planning next agenda before tonight's meeting. It was a little bit close. We also at next week's meeting will have Marina Fernandez, who is an engineer at the town Department of Public Works, coming to talk to us about the stormwater management project that they are proposing for behind Cunningham Collycott School, that has been discussed at the Facilities Advisory Committee a couple of times, and she'll be attending the meeting next week, as well as we're going to have a team coming in to report on the efforts of the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative grant that has funded early childhood needs assessment that's been taking place in the last couple of weeks, and will be then moving into strategic planning for that project as funded through that grant. That grant ends by June 30th, so it's a very quick turnaround with that work, but we'll have a team here to update the school committee on those efforts. Any other items that you all know about that we need to include next week? Lizzie?
Sorry, there was also the idea of just circling back on community forum and just the opportunity to discuss as a group.
Thank you. Yes.
What we might want to try to do for the end of the year with something for that.
Yes, yes. And I think I already passed that along to Charlene Roach, but thank you. Yes, we'll add that to the agenda as well. Superintendent Jett?
No, I just wanted to remind all school committee members, the senior award night, you guys probably got the list of upcoming events. I also want to let you guys know 2 o'clock on Sunday, June 5th is the graduation on Brooks Field for the class of 2022. So I just want to keep putting that on your radar. We'll definitely follow up, make sure Principal Cahill sends out the invite if it hasn't gone out already. And again, it's a nice opportunity for school committee members who are working with the Milton Public Schools to enhance it, see our students bless the stage and receive their diplomas. And it also affords you the opportunity after the ceremony is over, you could chat with a couple of the students as well, or possibly beforehand. The event starts at 2 o'clock. You have to get there a little bit earlier, and it usually lasts about maybe an hour and 40 minutes or so. The time has been getting better and better as the years we try to be as quick and succinct as possible. People don't come to really hear us speak, but they come to see their children receive that diploma in signifying their achievement in the Milton Public Schools. So I just wanted to make sure that that's on your radar.
That's great. And Superintendent Jett, I don't know if Principal Cahill will be organizing for the procession, whether she will want the school committee to be part of the procession, or whether we should just go to our seats on the field. Last year, none of us were exactly sure where we were supposed to be. So.
I would make sure that is spelled out very clearly. Unfortunately, the last 3 years has been 3 different types of ceremonies.
Every time, that's right.
But typically in years past, you're lined up as part of the procession. We're in the front, and it's a very easy task for us. In previous years, it takes about 10 minutes to coordinate. That's it. But I would make sure that that information gets to you guys as soon as possible.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, I think that ought to do it. I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. Thank you. Roll call vote. Dr. Carroll,
Yes.
Dr. Miranda,
Yes.
Member White,
Yes.
Member Varghese,
Yes.
Member Ross Denny,
Yes.
and Chair Rose Marin, yes. And that ought to do it. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.